24th EIPM annual conference and one event of the EIPM 30th anniversary. Thanks very much to be with us today. For 30 years, EIPM has been one of the leading edge in terms of research, education, training, and creation of concepts. This is for 30 years of the EIPM. For 24 years of the EIPM annual conference, we have been a paramount in Europe for the purchasing professionals, the place to be to meet purchasing professionals and purchasing specialists, and in the wonderful environment. This year, as you know, conference has been changing and the world has been changing. The conference is different. We'll be as professional as we used to be and as we have been always, and we'll be as friendly as we were. But as you know, we get a bit less of discussion, less coffee break, less champagnes, but much more participants. We are over 1,000 people from all around the world, and we are very pleased to be with you today. So not only from Europe, but from the rest of the world. This is the beauty of online conference. So less coffee, less champagne, but much more people. So thanks very much to be with us. Nevertheless, I promise you that during this 2 days conference, you're going to have a lot of fun somehow, wonderful people, wonderful speakers, and a chance to be with these great speakers. The topic we're going to cover towards fifth generation is, as you know, the title of a book we published some months ago. You know that we are facing this big crisis. But at the same time, so we say that's an exciting period. It's fascinating, it's challenging, and we have to take some decisions that perhaps we never took before. And I think it's a period great in terms of opportunity, and it's great an opportunity, decision making, problem solving for all the purchasing professionals and for the purchasing profession as itself. So during these 2 days, in between 2 days and tomorrow, we're going to cover 4 main topics with 12 wonderful speakers coming from 10, by the way, 10 different countries. The first topic we're going to cover is tackling risks. The second is lowering, how can we lower the financial break-even point. The third is how can we revisit the supply chain footprint, and the fourth one be investing in new technologies. You understand that all these topics are coming from this crisis, but we have to overcome, and taking this in consideration will be even better, even stronger. So thanks very much for your trust. Thanks very much for being with us. Good morning, Europe. Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Middle East. Nice lunch, India. Good afternoon, Asia. Good evening, Australia. Good night, America. Welcome the world. As you could see outside, the weather is great. A bit fresh, but very great. Very pleased to meet you back here inside the EIPM building in Archamps, the Archamps campus near Archamps, near Geneva. Welcome again to these first days of the 24th annual conference. Our conference is sponsored this year by Argo & Co, supported by Les Achats and CDF. As I just said some minutes ago, we had 12 speakers from 10 different countries, covering for the 4 topics. Oh, by the way, you know that we are over 1,000 people looking at this conference. This morning, over 700 were already present. These 4 topics, that's quite interesting. These 4 topics are not at all topics on purchasing procurement. They are related to business. For us, it's quite important because it means that the purchasing is really in the center of the business. The purchasing procurement has to support business. Purchasing procurement is influencing business. So this is the first point, which is very important for us. Business procurement is in business and somehow is working for business. So this is the first point, which is important for us. The second point, which we would like to highlight, is that all these 4 topics are related to our turbulent pre-COVID period, which has been even accelerating during this COVID period. You know that turbulence is always linked to the notion of time, time acceleration, time deceleration. So we will be back on this idea of time. Another point which is important also to highlight is that these 4 topics are focusing, highlighting the importance of time, the time frame, the speed, the pace. As we did already explain in the newly published EIPM book called Fifth Generation Purchasing, when pace meets powers. And I think this is a great point of this period, the pace and power getting together. So after this short introduction, what I would like to say today is that we will cover two topics today and two new topics tomorrow. So today we're going to cover tackling risks and lowering financial break-even points. For each of these topics, we will welcome first 3 speakers. Each of them will be speaking, presenting some ideas about the topic of risk or the topic of lowering the break-even. Then we have a discussion, a roundtable discussion. We will be moderated by one person from EIPM Oracle, and then a synthesis. Help you, and then we have a coffee break. Sorry, I was getting to forget the coffee break. Coffee break is always very important to get the time for discussing, to get the time for exchanging with your peers. So I hope you're nicely set. You're going to be ready now, and we're going to jump in this first topic. The first topic, as I said for this morning, it's about tackling risks. That's amazing because when we speak about risk management has been quite forever kind of an excellence for purchasing department, purchasing professionals is part of. And when we say what are you doing, I try to work on anticipating risk, and my role is risk management. So this is part of the job roles of a buyer of purchasing department. But what is amazing with a crisis, COVID crisis, is even though everybody has been very well informed about the COVID crisis getting on in China first by mid-January, even though quite everybody got all these tools on risk management, very few companies did anticipate or react promptly to the COVID crisis. So the point is why? So why? On one hand, we have a tool. On one hand, we were aware, but at the same time, nothing really had been involved and nothing has been really working. So this is a very important point for us, just trying to understand why. So we're going to try to answer all these points, and we're going to try to see what's the best solution to anticipate to react promptly during this crisis or next crisis. COVID crisis is one crisis, so we're facing a lot of crises, but this one is global and global at the same time. So for this first topic, I'm very pleased to welcome 3 speakers. First speaker will be Fabrice Thomas. He's coming from Agilent, and he's Vice President Global Supply Chain. He's working in Singapore. He's French initially, but working in Singapore. The second speaker will be Yusaku Kuwara, Japan Airlines. He's a risk director for Japan Airlines. He's coming, as you understand, from Japan. And the third speaker will be Karl Breidenbach, Infineon, Senior Director Procurement Production, coming from Germany. The panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Hervé Legendre, Professor at the EIPM, Director of Research and Director of Value Creation Observatory. I hope you're going to enjoy this first session on risks tackling, and have a wonderful conference with us now. Thanks very much, Fabrice, to be with us this morning. Just some questions. How critical is supply chain risk management for Agilent today?
In this period of time, not only related to the COVID, but to the market growth that we were facing, risk management is an essential part of our day-to-day job. Because if you don't know, Agilent Technology is serving laboratory, hospital, research institute, university, and experience, but also patient treatment are really depending on our capability to deliver accurately to our customer. And in our structure, supply chain start from the strategic procurement to the tactical procurement to the manufacturing and logistics. And when I mean logistics, this is both because we own our own warehouse, but also our distribution center. So we take the responsibility to deliver to the final customer. So managing the internal risk about our capability to manufacture and deliver, but also capability to deliver accurately to the final customer is essential for us. And when I mean accurately, sometimes that can be at the precise hour that we have to deliver to the customer. So understanding the internal risk and the external risk, and emphasize now with the COVID situation, is significantly critical for us.
Thank you, Fabrice. So what would be the 2 or 3 key principles that you think are really key for risk management for you?
And I think on top of knowing our job in terms of procurement, supply chain, and so on, I mean having the right competency, there is 3 factors that emerged during this crisis. First is the modelization of the risk management. The second one is the data management. And the third one, I would say, is the real-time information and decision that has to be taken.
Thank you, Fabrice, for these 3 points. Can you dig a bit in the first and second and third points? So let's start with the first one.
Yeah, if I speak first about the modelization. Actually, when we speak about risk management, as I was saying, there is internal and external factor. The difficulty is to put all information together and to have a clear vision of what are the risks we are exposed to. If I take the example at Celligent, we are managing about 2,500 suppliers worldwide. We have manufacturing sites everywhere in the world. We have 4 big distribution centers, 2 in Asia, 1 in Europe, and one in US. The important thing was to understand what kind of disruption, if I look from that angle, we could face from the supplier. That could be related to their capacity because we had an increased demand. That could be about their capability to bring simply worker in their factory because of lockdown, because of curfew, because of increased COVID case from their worker typically. That was also their capability to deliver. And you know that for medical and healthcare, there were some principle of essential service. So it's how to help them to grab the right permit and authorization to be able to ship and to deliver to our factory. So there is, just speaking about from the supplier perspective, there is a lot of information that has to be handled. And when you manage 2,500 suppliers, you cannot make it through an Excel file, simply. So the complexity was how we can set that information, all those potential information, into something which is understandable by manager who don't need to dig into all those information, but who need to have the right visualization of information to take the right decision. So this is what I mean by this modelization. And there is nothing which exists on the market, actually, a plug and play solution. So everything at Celligent has been developed internally by our data scientist team within supply chain.
Okay, so you did not take a solution from a market, you developed it. And how long did it take? Just curiosity. How long did it take? You have been leading this, who has been...
It was something like than about a month.
Okay.
We were using, because we are extremely connected to SAP as a set of information, gathering all the different models, you know, the capacity of suppliers, capability to transport, those kind of risks and so on. We were gathering, and this is a little bit the data management, the second point, through ClickSense. So we have in supply chain an organization of data scientists and data analysts that are responsible to develop those interface for manager, who are responsible to take data from whatever, if it's Google or weather real time or SAP internally. So finding the right information internally and externally, and to bring them in something in this modelization, this interface, which is quite understandable, I would say, by by anyone who don't know programming on SQL or Python and this kind of stuff.
Okay, so you have a link with a second point. So let's go on the second point.
Yeah, the data management.
Data management, yeah.
Yes, is one of the most critical. You know, I'm truly believing that our manager actually, they spend too much time on extracting and crunching data. That I used to say they spend 80% of their time understanding data, 20% of decision. And this paradigm really has to shift in the coming year. But you cannot do it by yourself. You cannot be an expert in procurement, in supply chain, and also at the same time SQL and Python. You need to bring the right competencies. So you need to bring people who understand how to find and extract data from free source, but also from internal source, and how they can extract those information. They can modelize those information and connect them together. If I take one very simple example, one of the risks for us was the spread of COVID case around the globe. So one of the modelization we had is that we had a worldwide map with our plus 2,000 suppliers. And we were looking at the number of sites that they were shipping to, or the number of warehouse, in terms of volume, but in terms of parts, but also in terms of impact on our manufacturing and our capability to ship. So the full connection. And we were superposing both at the same time the evolution of the weather, because you remember the crisis started in February, but also the expansion of the number of COVID cases, because that was helping us to understand which kind of risk we were exposed to. And when the COVID situation, the COVID virus was expanding across US, and that was something around April, May, something like last year, it was not the same everywhere. So you could not consider US as one country, but you had to consider the big city and east and eastern and central side of US to understand finally, okay, were we thinking that it will expand to California, for example, where I have a lot of suppliers? So all this modelization and risk management, this is one of the aspects about the expansion of the COVID, was really helping us to decide what to do, and not to have email and phone call with suppliers every day to understand, okay, if there are any risk, you will shortfall of employee, or because there will be additional COVID case and this kind of things, which is too many information to manage at the same time. So our team, the data scientists and analysis, they were taking information, internal one about the flow, size of supplier, impact on revenue, but also at the same time, external information about the spread of the COVID, typically about some lockdown situation in some country and so on.
Okay, and this helped you in anticipating some lockdown or some.
Well, typically, if I take the example of Malaysia, where we are bringing a lot of product from Malaysia to Singapore and Penang, where we also have a factory. This country has been lockdown, open up, and there was some specific authorization for suppliers who were working for company in the medical and healthcare. So there was this essential service. So when we start to see the spread of virus and the coming lockdown in Malaysia, then we were helping all the suppliers we have in Malaysia to send them the authorization, because we had the right to, that they can ask the authorization and request the right permit to manufacture and to ship from Malaysia to Singapore. That was kind of essential part of the job here. And if I take another angle, this was also the possibility for us to anticipate what we should do in terms of inventory. Should we increase that inventory? Should we ask the supplier to prepare more and more material ahead of the COVID arrival, I would say.
Okay, thanks. Great. And the third case about transportation.
I know that's another, and here I can move a little bit to the real-time decision and management. When the COVID started, when we start to see the crisis, we completely changed our approach with our logistics service provider. So with those DHL, KWE, FedEx, and so on. And previously, Agilent was very much concentrated, having one supplier per region. Our strategy 2 years ago was to open the panel of those suppliers, not only for a matter of competition, but to ensure that we will have the right capacity available. And we felt that there was a stringent situation on the market. So here we have changed our approach. Instead of just looking at the cost and performance of the suppliers, we have set contract based on the capacity, and we have reserved capacity with those suppliers from the early beginning. And when I say early beginning, this is the decision I took was already in February last year. We were working with the 5-6 big LSP, and we were setting contract for the next 3 or 6 months on some lanes, so from Germany to China, or from China to some location in US, some recurrent one, where we were pre-booking capacity. We knew almost what would have been the volumes. Sometimes we were above, sometimes we were lower, but at least we were reserving those. Sometimes we have lost a little bit money because we were not able to fill in the aircraft or the capacity that was available. But at no point of time, and this is what is interesting, by setting this kind of partnership, by no point we have not been able to ship in between our warehouse or to the final customer. So that we have completely reset that. And in terms of cost, because this is an important factor, we have also fixed the price per kilogram on that transport for the next 3 or 6 months. And we will allow us to revise the cost up and down, depending on the situation of the market, to stabilize a little bit our relation and to not focus on, okay, should I look for a container? Should I look for an air freight and this kind of thing, but to have a more streamlined relation. Nevertheless, and when I speak about real time, now since February last year, something like this, we have organized a team of transport leaders across the region and across the site. So every week, it was about more than 20 people in a meeting, sharing the situation, sharing about the cost, the capacity, the evolution of the market, the evolution of the different air freight company, to ensure that we could take immediately the right decision by switching a lane, for example, in between Germany to US, from this supplier to this suppliers. And we know that it takes some time. So the creation of that team, specifically focusing on the transport and logistic management, was essential to understand the risk, being able to, through this modelization, visualize the risk, then to connect with the supplier, the LSP, the logistic partner, and to take the appropriate decision. I mean, anticipating by booking capacity, switching lane in between supplier if necessary, or even, and this is something that we have enhanced at the same time, changing the transport mode. So at that period of time, we have moved a lot from air freight to ocean freight. So now we know that ocean is skyrocketing, those costs, but we have avoided quite expensive amount of spend on air freight by also moving this. All those decisions, and this is just an example of 3 of them, was enabled because we were able to visualize the data and because we had people who were really looking at the right information internally, externally, and make them understandable by us.
What's very great, and what's very interesting, I think, is your capacities of being agile. So it's a question of agility. On these 3 examples, it's a question of agility. So from agility, I mean, people, what are the key for you in terms of people to be sure you're going to be agile? So what have you been looking for? How have you been selecting the right people for being part of these teams? And so on and so forth. So do you think you need some very specific competence? Do you need, it's a question of leadership because you are there and people are become agile? So
there is several things. And I think the first one was the motto or the wild card that was given by our CEO. And when our CEO, February, March last year, start to understand what was the consequence of the crisis in terms of logistic cost, in terms of capacity, the only message that we receive was, you do whatever you want, you have any opportunity, you take it, but we have to serve our customer and we have to deliver to our customer. So there was no pressure on the cost, on the savings, on these kind of things. The main direction was, okay, you do whatever you need. You are free of, absolutely. If you need to spend more, absolutely. If you need to change the mode, absolutely. So that was the essential message we received. The second thing that perhaps more in terms of leadership, when we create that team, so we have organized a transport network across the globe from California to China to be sure that people can understand what was the specific situation in the country. What were the constraints? What were the legal constraints? What was the evolution of this pandemic and also the lockdown, curfew, and all these kind of things. So, in terms of leadership, that was to organize that team and then to set clearly the function. So, some people were focusing on how, from my country, I can ship to the distribution center. So, I'm very much focused on my country. And at the second level, some people were purely working on the contract and long-term perspective, or long-term, I say 3 months, 6 months, and in this crisis, with those FedEx, DHL, KW, and so on. So we have very clearly specified the different roles of the people. The third thing, which is very important, it's in terms of competencies. I do believe if we have been successful in this, and we have grown in fiscal year 20 at Agilent, and it's partially because we have been able to deliver our customer. It's because our team know exactly what they have to do. Yeah, on site, the transport manager, the transport leader, they are responsible to negotiate every day. And it's not only in terms of cost. They know they have this capability to understand the balance in between. I need to serve the business. I need to serve the objective and my personal objective in terms of savings, etc. So they were able to really make the trade-off in between what is essential to serve the business, what is essential to serve our customer, and what's come to the usual KPI and focus. And basically, yes, they know very well their job, and they know their supplier, they know how, yes, to manage transport. And that's a big community that usually in supply chain, we tend to forget. Logistic and transport management, we tend to delegate this quite a lot, and I can see that on the market. And because we have those competency internally, I think this is what helped us really to be successful and finally deliver, I will say, not on time, but at least 100% of our customer in this period of time. And that's continuing now because it is not the end of the crisis.
As a conclusion, any final recommendation? It was part of your recommendation or conclusion, what you said, but any other comments on?
Well, I think at the management level and mid-management level in supply chain, we have more and more to be focused on the business and the business impact. And supply chain is an essential part of it, but we need to understand how to serve differently and better the business and how to serve our customer. And all the very competency expertise in procurement, in logistics and so on, need to be given to people who are expert. You don't need to be a super expert to manage supply chain. You need to understand the trade-off in between business and what need to be provided from supply chain. Second thing is that you need to be able to think about the modelization of the information. Here we were speaking about risk management, but that can be applied for many other different topics. And to bring the right competencies for the people who know how to manage data, those data scientists and data analysts. Our job more and more is really to connect the dots, to create this internal ecosystem to really serve a business and not to be only self-focused on supply chain, procurement or logistic as it was still some years ago. So we are much more now, I believe, COVID revealed this business enabler more and more. Than only expert in shipping or buying.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fabrice. Very nice speech, great explanation. Business enabler. You said business enabler is exactly what we're speaking about, business enabler. You show us how to anticipate. You explain us how to develop your own tools based on your own expertise. You explain also some of the elements you were looking for in terms of behavior. So thanks very much for this first presentation. Now, I would like to jump in with Yusaku. It's quite interesting to have one person from Japan here on board. You know that due to earthquake, due to tsunami, Japan has a culture of anticipating risks and or to react promptly to risks. So to risk consequences. We were delighted to know that Yusaku was arriving on board. We are very honored and very pleased to have Yusaku Kuwahara with us. As I said, Director of Risk Manager in Japan Airlines. Now.
The first question is what COVID-19 has brought to the socioeconomics and consumer behavior in Japan?
Firstly, working environment has been accelerated to change in Japan. Lifetime employment was believed as a virtue of Japanese management, and the employees have demonstrated its loyalty to long working hours and everyday commuting with very crowded train. Of course, new emerging companies in Japan had proceeded to get out of such an old system earlier than outbreak of COVID-19. Remote working by a high-speed network has been facilitated by Japanese government, and it has settled in Japanese society due to COVID-19. It is really good to save on the office space and its rent, get work and family life balance, further promote electronic commerce and online amusement content at home, and contribute to business continuity due to diversified working site, although group mind will become weaker. Accordingly, the type of employment between a company and the individual will be also diversified. Secondly, unprecedented monetary support to damaged businesses with subsidies and free financing due to COVID-19 has made a bubble economy in stock market and real estate market in Japan, while its country primary balance is further deteriorating. Japanese regime and the Bank of Japan will not be able to stop its easy money policy. This wealth effect will support Japanese economy for years, while its disparity in wealth is being bigger and disparity of the consumption toward high-priced product and low-priced product are further proceeded. For instance of airline business, its traffic will shift from business demands to leisure demands because it is a part of luxury goods in economics, and air cargo continues to be in a robust demand due to electronic commerce. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this comprehensive answer. Now let's move to the next question. What risks will we encounter in the future of Japan after COVID-19?
Biggest risk is a change in country monetary policy. Japan will have to explore a soft landing scenario of the bubble economy in years. This might be brought by the change of Japanese regime or change of president of Bank of Japan. Secondly, climate change is devastating the impact of natural disasters in addition to earthquakes in Japan. Business continuity preparedness, including supply chains, continues to be strengthened. Typhoon 21 in the year of 2018 hit Kansai International Airport. It was flooded for the first time due to high tide brought by the Typhoon 21. Kansai International Airport was a hub cargo terminal to and from the western part of Japan. Cargo warehouses in the airport were submerged and its function disrupted for weeks. Manufacturers located in the western part of Japan had to suddenly change their supply chain from Kansai Airport to Narita Airport for their imports and exports. Finally, Japan shall not be late for digital transformation. Japan has still paper transactions and traditional business practices which may deter digital transformation. Japanese government shall take the stronger initiative to embed digital transformation into Japanese society faster. Thank you.
Very interesting, thank you. Now, looking into risk management, what would you see as the techniques and the practices that will play a key role in this post-COVID world?
Okay. Risk management uses scenario planning and system thinking. Of course, we are used to traditional ways, such as risk map techniques and risk response options listed in ISO 31000. Scenario planning and system thinking is more powerful for horizon scanning. We start PESTEL analysis, politics, economy, society, technology, legal, environment, from media sources or think tanks. We pick up two possible game changers to shape the future business environment. As we don't know well if this factor moved toward positive or negative, we make one for vertical axis and another for horizontal axis to make a four-quadrant matrix and decide most possible scenario. It may unfold a multiple layers of a roadmap from a future product at the top layer to fundamental research and development at the bottom layer. System thinking is used to draw a system model diagram with key components and variants in order to find chain risks. For example, COVID-19 stops economic activities in human contact services in order to decrease the number of the infected. Both gears of business performance of human contact services and the decrease of the number of the infected move in the same direction. On the contrary, monetary supply increases to support damaged businesses of human contact services. As a result of this monetary easing, it drives the bubble economy in stock market. Gears of monetary supply and the price of stock market move in the same direction with synchronizing with the drive to decrease the number of the infected. In short, every phenomenon is driven by the other phenomenon. Risk management uses system thinking to find chain risks and key factors which drive those risks, and then we control the risk volume to confine it within a maximum risk appetite or tolerance. Thank you.
Now, if we look into procurement and supply chain management, what would be your recommendations to professionals? What should they consider in terms of tools, governance, ways of working into the future?
I would like to suggest two things. First suggestion for supply management professionals is to involve the scenario planning and roadmap process. This gives supply management professionals the capability of backward looking from the future scenario. Scenario planning will be mostly utilized by marketing professionals or strategy planning professionals. However, supply management professionals can also contribute to this process. Supply management professionals have more opportunities to get information about new seeds of technologies or market trends from suppliers. Supply management professionals stand at the nearest location to bring innovation to their own organizations. After scenario planning, a product roadmap is usually developed to adapt the organization for the possible future market or demand. Once a future demand or needs on a product or services was envisaged, the organization shall enter into the phase of product or service designing on a backward basis from future demand or needs. Once the organization designed the product or service and the necessary functions in it, the organization will enter into the phase of research and development on a backward basis. When look at this process, supply management professionals can contribute in every phase via their knowledge and information. I really want supply management professionals not to be passive and want them to make a difference while it's involving scenario planning and roadmap process. Secondly, business continuity preparedness is a part of supply management responsibility. If the business of an organization support an infrastructure for the society, they have to pay more attention to business continuity. Japan has a proverb: business can only success with good for yourself, good for myself, good for society. This matches SDGs as well. Therefore, we shall always contribute to the society with our product or services, even in a disruptive situation, as much as we can, as far as the society needs us. I would like to emphasize on the fact whether we can deliver our product or services depends on supply management professionals. Thank you.
Arigato, Yukasu-san. Thank you very much, Yukasu, for this really interesting presentation, just showing the culture of risk in Japan and what the Japanese society is implementing along the years for centuries, facing these risks. So thanks very much for this cultural presentation, I would say. Let's move now to the first speaker. And I would like to introduce Carl. As you know, the world today is really facing a big crisis on the semiconductor. It's a worldwide crisis on the semiconductor. And this crisis is a risk we're facing as any risks. So I think it's really interesting to welcome Carl just to work and to explain what this about. And we know that there are a lot of confidentiality beside this information, so it's not going to give you a lot of secret. But what's interesting is somehow to get the idea of in a very risky world we have today in the semiconductor, what somebody from is working on. So I'm very pleased to have Carl with us on board during this very turbulent time for the semiconductor. So thank you, Carl, to be with us now. Thank you very much, Herr Carl. Dankeschön. Thanks very much, Carl. Thank you very much for this presentation. We know that you are in the world of confidentiality during this crisis, but what you explained us was very interesting. Taking into consideration this difficult time. just after this first presentation. You know, for each risk, we have to find an adapted solution. So I find mine, and in my case, I have this on my head. So just to conclude this risks tackling period, I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Hervé Legendre. Hervé, as I said, is director of research at the IPM. Hervé, the floor is yours with Fabrice, with Yusaku, and with
Carl.
Carl.
Thanks a lot. Hello, everyone. Very glad to be with the three of you for this roundtable discussion. It was really interesting already to go through all of these, interviews and exchange that we had in just a little bit before. So I'm really looking forward to our exchange now. I'll start with a first question that will be for Carl and Fabrice. During time of rapid changes, what we've seen from an academic studies perspective is that the companies that are able to be ahead of their competitors, this is an advantage they can keep for a long time. So this is something quite difficult to close on. So is this part of the way you're looking at the situation? Do you see this as an opportunity to leapfrog competition, as an opportunity to build capabilities that can really help you to be ahead of the competition? Maybe we start with Carl, a reaction on this topic?
Yes, Hervé, I think this is something we are definitely considering, and I would say from at least two different angles. So I think the first angle is when you look at the semiconductor industry model. So it's a heavily cyclical industry. That means we are used to these heavy up and down turns. And at the same time, product development and qualification cycles of the different semiconductors are quite long. And this also applies to the manufacturing cycle time, because if you're moving to the more advanced chips, you have months until a product leaves the manufacturing floor and goes through this very lengthy processes. So this means when we are going into times of downturn, or we're going into these kind of industry crises that we are seeing in the last couple of months, we will still need to continue to invest heavily into pushing R&D, expanding manufacturing, finding new partners for the next generation of these new products. And because the product landscape and our competitors that we're delivering to are using it for long lifetime products that require a long development as well. And I'm speaking about the next generation of cars that you'll be seeing in 2025 or 26 upcoming. And then the second aspect is the procurement perspective. And here I would say, first of all, COVID-19, and then when you look at the upturn that has happened after that, it has taught many players in the industry, not only in semiconductors, that behaving opportunistically and just using just-in-time principles is not working so well. So in that sense, I really see the value in becoming a trusted partner, sticking to commitments in times of crisis. I would say even supporting your suppliers will then be able to create some sort of competitive advantage against some of your industry peers. And then when you look at digitization is really pushing procurement and the industry. It's creating the next frontier because everyone has to work from home. And we realize now that our process might not have been to the latest cutting edge, and we now have the chance to invest in this and to then come out of it with a competitive advantage. Okay, that's
Thank
it
you,
for
Carl. Thanks a lot. Very interesting. Fabrice, you're in an industry where, there's potential for growth these days. So do you have any reaction to this question about the opportunity to leapfrog competitors in this context?
Yeah, definitively. So the company I'm working for, Agilent Technology, is specialized in healthcare and lab equipment. So we were not directly taking benefit of the COVID crisis, even as we serve many hospital, lab, research institute that induce some of the positive challenge. We can look at it under two angles. The first one is the agility of our organization and the capability of the organization to adapt itself in a very short time and to refocus on priorities. On our side, in supply chain, belonging to the operation lead of our company, we were really focused on the digital transformation over the past 2-3 years. And because of the need to refocus and have short-term priorities, some project has been put in standby, some continue. But what was really important is how we can adapt to the new norm or to the new standard of operating the business. And I can see that from the logistics standpoint, and we will rediscuss this a little bit later on. So agility, refocus, and the leadership here. The second thing is, and that creates something new, because this is where you create new way of working, or where you need to unlock a certain value or certain legacy of the way you were operating in terms of business. So here, compared to single competitor, the first mover have the advantage, definitively. Then it's the same if you look on the other side of supply chain with the procurement, with the supplier. So if you are able to imply the same from your supplier, if you are able to secure the flow of product, the capacity from your supplier, we have to be clear, this is capacity that will not be allocated to your competitors. And we know that in this situation of crisis, both for the company who has the chance to continue to grow, but also the one that has difficulty to make their supplier deliver. If you are able to do it, yes, you create a competitive advantage, and then you capture the capacity of your supplier. So positively, you can create a breakthrough by a new way of working, focusing on different priority short-term one. On the other side, if you are strong with your supplier, then you absorb their capacity and you secure that. What Kelly was saying is also right, just to underline it, is that it puts a little bit your process, your way of working, and your baseline of work a little bit at risk. So if you are not very strong, or if you were not very strong in terms of process, in terms of structure, yes, that highlights that you have a lot of challenges that you will not be able to recover short term, but that gives us a little bit of indication what should be your priority in the next coming years to come back to something which is more stable.
Thank you, Fabrice. Very, very insightful in terms of how these different dimensions of evolving, repurposing some of the past activities and delivering into the future are creating a differential relative to competition. I'd like now to go to the other point you've just mentioned, which is the transportation industry has been absolutely essential in the development of all these globalization that we've seen over the past 20 years and even more. But today it's under some shock, it's under some constraints. So we thought it'd be interesting to have the views of Kouara on the air freight aspect, and then Fabrice on other aspects of transportation. So Kouara, any kind of comments on the current state in terms of transportation from an air freight perspective?
Okay, yes, thank you very much indeed for having me at this integrated in a conference. And first of all, yes, most of our fleets are on the ground due to COVID-19 now. Every country has its own policy to accept passengers. Air cargo is, however, in a robust demand now. We don't have freighters, so we utilize the cabin space to cargo due to a very limited number of passengers. So another challenge is vaccine transportation is going now. Yes, we carry a great deal of vaccine every day. Japanese government disparate gives assurance for the nation to the Olympic and the Paralympic game in Tokyo. So now, the electric commerce is growing in Japan due to working at home. Air cargo demand will continue for years, I predicted. at everything.
Thank you. Fabrice, from your hand, looking at the global situation, any comment on the current transportation situation?
But I would say this is going better. If we look at the situation 2020 compared 21 compared to 2020, we are in better shape. Nevertheless, when you look at the number, this is still a bit challenging. The passenger daily capacity is still lagging by more than 56% compared to 20. The cargo is going better, but most of the transport is now using the passenger belly, and as long there will be no passenger, then there will be no flight, so there will be no capacity of transportation. And minus 56, this is quite huge. The thing that we have to observe also is from the demand perspective. So here was the supply, but demand perspective from Asia and mainly from China to the rest of the world, the gap is only less than 5% now. That shows that the economy is recovering quite fast in Asia, but we are still facing capacity. So on one side, the westbound, so from Asia to Europe or Asia to US, is extremely expensive because the capacity is extremely limited. On the other side, there is extra capacity because flight has to go back and forth. So what I want to highlight here is that this situation is evolving almost every month. And if you don't have a structure in your organization who is able to monitor that change and to adapt your way of working, or to adapt your transport lane, or to adapt and change your carrier, for sure you're lagging significantly behind. So referring to what we were just sharing behind, if you are not able to adapt yourself, switch off the carrier, change the lane, change transportation mode, and we could iterate that the company who has not already thinking about the move from air to ocean, from air to rail, and to disperse a little bit the risk related to transport, not only from the cost perspective, because here we are facing really on a capacity constraint, but for sure they are lagging. And for sure they have lost even a possible competitive advantage compared to the one who were able to anticipate that. Now it's never too late because, as it was just said before, most surely we know that the situation, at least for the transport, will stand like this for at least 2 or 3 years. This is what all the companies they are saying. There will be no clear and strong recovery of the capacity that we had in 2019. So it's still time for Fosun to refocus a little bit on the transport and logistics and the way we were working most probably before the COVID.
Thanks a lot, Fabrice. I think that's really interesting because it's telling us that even though we might see some of the average, going up in a steady way, gradually, coming back to a fairly good volume of activity, there's a lot of disparities. There's a lot of differences across places, across sectors, across industries. And we should be paying attention not just to the average, but to any single information about abnormalities that can help us to anticipate some of the challenge. Kouara, in this context, I mean, as a risk manager, when you're moving from a situation where there's 30% of a known to 70, 80, 90% of unknown, how do you change your way of accessing information? How do you rewire your ability to capture some of the signals that are essential to change and adapt to the new situation?
Okay. And first of all, yes, we do external analysis. As you know, yes, politics, economy, social, technology, legal, and the environment on a daily basis. Though we shall realize the change in stakeholders by situation. First, we confirm all affected stakeholders at the present and the future. Then gather information to select for the stakeholders. Fortunately, I contracted the major key news media and the think tank, and also SNS real-time monitoring service is also important because the nation's sentiment may move the trend. And the information from government organization is collected and shared internally to predict and prepare the future. We then screen information for the related stakeholders and our business. Information turns into intelligence. I don't care any data or information which I don't use for a business purpose. Of course, information not directly related sometimes inspired me. It was to correct. It is yes way of risk management. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really interesting because the message from you is really like, it's not about firefighting. It's really about stepping back and revisiting some of the strategic framework we're using to understand the situation and plugging new sources of information into this in order to be able to, take the best decision at the right time. Really interesting. So now let's look at it from a people point of view. I think there's different perspective on the people side, whether we look at the culture, the capabilities we could be discussing now. So how do we balance a sense of urgency, a sense of continuity, and a longer sense of purpose in order to, get the people working on the front line and at the center to do the right thing? Maybe Carl, if you want to start from that perspective, and then we can go to Fabrice.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the key leadership lessons that I have learned in the last couple of months is that creating the sense of urgency is really important when your organization or your team or your supplier has not yet understood that the changes are required. And this is important when you already see an extreme situation upcoming. So you have to act, you have to create this sense of urgency. However, now, as we're now in a constant change of uncertainty, like we saw it with COVID-19, the trade war, and so on, we're looking forward by seeing crisis as an opportunity to improve the competitive advantage. And therefore, this mutual purpose is really important. And I think I've seen some of the organizations, especially more associated with the medical equipment space, the pharmaceutical space, who are doing really well in that regard, because they really can connect their organizational target towards bringing us out of COVID-19. And then I would say another example of good corporate purpose for other companies is also Indian, I would say. So our main mission is to make the world easier, safer, and greener. It sounds very easy, but it's very hard because you need to develop these chips and products, and you have to find the best suppliers that are able to do that. And we're, creating this sense of urgency that we want to give to the world very efficient power electronics that don't consume so much of energy, that will positively basically impact the climate, is really something that a lot of employees within Infineon are working to. And then the other aspect is obviously we have said we want to become carbon neutral ourselves by 2030, and it's also giving a push. So in a nutshell, I'd say differentiate between when you need to create urgency versus building a big long-term mission, and balancing this is really the key for nowadays.
Very interesting, these multiple horizon that you've just been describing. Fabrice, your own view on people capabilities and this culture that we need to instill during this period?
But the correlated with the necessary move and fast move and adaptation. So I think that starts with a strong leadership of the manager to really understand or to anticipate what could be the impact of this crisis and all those change, and to decide where the team has to refocus and what are the new priorities. And that need to be a very strong message. And on the second step, to be able to adapt the organization. So this is also for the people in the organization to understand that for a period of time, their role can change and their role has to change and their focus has to change. And the individual objective that they receive typically beginning of the year, perhaps 3 months, 4 months after, they are completely crap and they are not corresponding to anything. So this is the capability of the leader to understand the situation, to transcript the situation into new priority, to communicate and to transfer those information to the rest of the team, to adapt the organization, to reset the objective, to reset the focus. So this is where we can really see the capacity and the maturity or the seniority of the leader, of some of the leader, to make or to adapt the organization. Not only in the firefighting, because this is not only one spot of issue that we observe for 3 months or one problem. We know now that it will be a midterm crisis, and that will, from this, will be delivered a new norm, a new way of working. And that's the second part of the adaptation of the organization. There is a lot of new jobs that most probably were under considered, perhaps, in some of the organization, like risk management, like data scientists, like data analysts, you know, those peripheral jobs that we were not focusing on when we speak about supply chain, that finally become more and more important. And I truly believe that more and more the leader in supply chain, not necessarily they will come from procurement or from logistics, but because the expectation is to have much more business acumen and to understand more the complexity of the economic and the world in itself, but also with the stakeholder. So it will be more global view, which will be necessary for the supply chain leader than perhaps it was in the past. So midterm, yes, it will change definitively the profile of the procurement and supply chain leader. Just my view.
Thanks a lot, Fabrice. Really interesting. I think we really had over this discussion, you know, a great insight into where is it that we need to adapt? Where is it that we need to persevere? Where is it and how can we address some of the short-term challenges, and how we can also look into you know, future opportunities to really make a difference from a competitive point of view. I would really like to thank the three of you, you know, for your input into this conference, the interviews, and this roundtable. It's been really a great pleasure to work with the three of you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Hervé.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. So,
Thank you very much, Hervé, for this discussion with our three speakers. Thank you, Sakou. Thank you, Fabrice. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Hervé. Thank you very much. We're going to have some minutes now for coffee break with some
synthesis.
Synthesis. Sorry for that. I'm just jumping on that. The coffee break was necessary. So sorry for that. It's live. So we go for a synthesis, Hervé.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much.
So
we just postpone the coffee break.
Yeah, we'll postpone the coffee break, Bernard, just for a few more minutes, because we thought it would be interesting to conclude each of these, you know, 1 hour and 15-minute sessions with a synthesis from our side. So I would like to welcome a partner from Argonne & Co., Aldric Vignon. And I know you've been, you know, cautiously looking at the exchange and all the videos, and I'd like to get your views about the sequence we've just seen.
Yeah, thank you, Hervé, for this very fruitful insight and round table. I must confess, and hearing the first discussion on the round table, that we have different views and approach, but I'm pleased to see that the foundations regarding risk management are quite similar. So here are my key takeaways with some additional views and thoughts based on the roundtable, the videos, and the discussion I had with some of our Argonne & Co. customers. So risk management is now at the heart of all procurement activities and has brought new insights. And it's no more firefighting activities, nor long-term view. It's mixed and a combined approach. risk management foundation are now set on technology, skills, cooperation, and agility. So I will elaborate on those 4 topics. First things first, as we have noticed, technology has a huge role to play. As risks are more and more diverse, the signals that help anticipating them are diffuse, coming from inside the company, from suppliers, and from all around the world, macro trends, weather conditions, etc. So the last year period has shown that handling risk properly is no more a matter of months of project, but great result could be achieved in a month or less, as described during the roundtable. And if you combine data scientist skills with procurement business understanding, you bring lots of value around risk. Second point is around procurement leader skills, which are more and more critical and rely now on a deep understanding of business needs, internal stakeholders ecosystems, suppliers landscape, and behaviors and strategy for sure, and the macro trends of the industry. These new skills are additional one, and they will make the difference in terms of performance in the future. And as mentioned by Fabrice, new jobs are emerging right now. But keeping human relationship is also key to anticipate and solve risk. The crisis has shown us that more than ever, regular contact should be set and managed at all levels, either at suppliers or procurement side. Keeping the line open, engaging regular discussion, sharing forecasts, assumptions, etc. So adapt your talk to the audience and especially to the ones who need to decide. Last point I would like to share is critical, is around agility and being able to adapt constantly in this new environment. So procurement professionals may challenge their own belief and practices. Do I change the frame of my relationship from years to months, from quarter to weeks? Do I have the mindset to rebalance frequency the targets, as mentioned by Fabrice, for example? What are the innovative levers I can leverage? My first guess is that there is no good time frame, just time frame adapted to the situation and the risk we are facing. So Fabrice has elaborated on that during the roundtable. So do not consider technology could do everything. Focus your time and effort on thinking and acting, and no more on gathering and compiling information, as Fabrice said. So it's time for a major data management shift. So as a conclusion, if we step back, I must say everything is already written in all procurement books, and we were all taught risk is part of the category management work. But now it's for real, and it's part of all management expectations. So do not wait for the next crisis to reshape your organization, to bring new skills to your team, and to be aware of all external signals. So Hervé, is it in line with what you wrote in your book, The Fifth Generation Purchasing?
Well, yes, Alrik, and I think you've been, saying it in many ways. And when you were talking about the importance of time, in this period already, tackling risk is a battle with time. And we've seen that a month of anticipation and a week of acceleration can really create a big difference with competitors. This is something we need to have in mind. Volatile environments are really opportunities to leapfrog competition. And we shouldn't be taking for granted that we will be ending up with lower performance. We had the cases provided by Carl on some of the automotive companies who've been, beating very significantly the average performance. They anticipated challenge, and they were really able to rapidly deploy some new solutions. You talked about the importance of being agile and reacting to the situation. I think still it's really important to go back to some of the strategies. It's really important to revisit them, but in a different way, probably, than we were doing in the past. A good strategy is, in fact, a set of hypotheses. And they tell us, in a given context, what would be the best, decision to have. And if things are changing, still, we need to look back, because we might be able to find an opportunity in terms of access to a new supplier that we had identified in the past. We might find new operational models that we've not been using recently, but that we had, identified as also an option at some point in time. So I think, we need to step back sometime. We need to look at all the dimensions of the markets, and that's really what we bring from a procurement standpoint. It's our deep knowledge into the market, and we shouldn't be succumbing to the firefighting on a day-to-day basis kind of a glory, I would say. In terms of digital, I think what would be for me very important to outline is it might be a time where we need to unplug some of the automatic algorithms that are saying what to do. So doing a bit less of the automation, while at the same time being able to use artificial intelligence to help us identify abnormalities, before they can even be visible by humans. And I think we had some really interesting examples of being able to be ahead of time with the spread of the pandemic that was given in some of the videos. Finally, I think I would conclude related to people, I would say. We need to listen these days to the people who are in the front lines. There are people that might not have been very visible, but these days they are. There are the people on the front line. There are the local logistics managers. There are the local buyer who are very close to what's happening locally and can take actions, can help us pass some of the information. We need to give these people the autonomy to voice their view, to take action as well, in order to handle the situation at the best level. And I think that if we combine a sense of purpose, a sense of urgency, maybe we can find a moment of peace in the middle of the storm. So I wish everyone a moment of peace in the middle of the storm.
Thank you, Hervé.
Thank you very much, Hervé. This moment of peace, we're going to get it now. We have some minutes for coffee break. I'm sorry, it was so urgent, this coffee break, but I was anticipating this coffee break. So, moment of peace, coffee break, some nice croissants, some chocolatine, as we said on, some fruit juice, some fresh air. To discuss in between yourself about what we heard this morning. You can stay online on YouTube channel, EIPM channel on VK. If you have any question, please, you can send them. We try to answer during this break. We'll be also answering after during the coming days if you have some more personal individual questions.